My name is Samantha Whitman. I'm 29 years old, and the night my mother shoved me toward a kitchen in front of nearly 100 guests was the night she finally learned that silence was not weakness. "You're here to wash dishes," she hissed, gripping my arm while cameras flashed behind us. "Stop trying to make tonight about you." I looked down at the badge she had pinned to my dress without permission. Staff support. Not family, not granddaughter. Not the woman who had spent 18 months restoring every historical recording playing throughout the building. Staff support. When I pulled my arm free, her smile never moved. That was her greatest talent. She could humiliate me while looking gracious enough for a magazine cover. Across the restored railway hall, guests gathered beneath a banner celebrating my older sister's engagement and her supposed appointment as the venue's new executive director. My work echoed through hidden speakers, train whistles, conductors calling destinations, workers laughing on crowded platforms decades ago. Everyone admired the atmosphere, but almost no one knew I had created it. My mother pushed a tray toward me. "Go through the service door. Lauren's announcement begins in 10 minutes. Something inside me became completely still. I removed the badge, placed it among the empty glasses, and started walking toward the exit with a red archive case my grandfather had warned me not to surrender. Then a chair scraped across the floor. Grandpa Elliot, 86 years old and unsteady on most days, slowly rose from the head table with one hand gripping his cane. My mother turned toward him, and the color vanished from her face before he said a word. "Before I tell you what he said, and what happened after I walked out, tell me, what time is it for you right now, and where are you watching from? I'm curious to see how far this story will travel." Whitman Railway Hall stood near Kansas City's old freight district, surrounded by brick warehouses, repair shops, and abandoned tracks that had not carried a passenger train in decades. Grandpa Elliot began working there as a signal technician at 19, became a systems engineer, and spent almost 40 years keeping trains moving through storms, equipment failures, labor disputes, and blackouts. When the terminal was scheduled for demolition, he organized a preservation campaign, invested his savings, persuaded former railway workers to contribute, and eventually placed the property inside the Elliott Whitman Heritage Trust. My mother, Diane Whitman, had managed the hall for 12 years. To outsiders, she was the woman who had rescued a forgotten landmark. Her photograph appeared in local magazines. She hosted charity dinners beneath the station clock, and she gave speeches about preserving working-class history. What she rarely mentioned was that Grandpa had purchased the property. She also never mentioned the weekends I spent cleaning storage rooms, cataloging rusted equipment, interviewing retired employees, or repairing fragile tapes that had been locked inside metal cabinets since the 1960s. I became an audio restoration engineer because of those recordings. When I was 13, Grandpa showed me a damaged reel labeled Platform 4, December 1958. It was buried beneath static electrical hum and mechanical noise. After weeks of studying sound restoration, I recovered the faint voice of a station announcer wishing passengers a Merry Christmas. Grandpa listened with tears in his eyes. "You brought them back," he whispered. My mother entered halfway through, said, "That's nice," then turned to my sister and asked her to show Grandpa photographs from her dance competition. That moment became the pattern of my childhood. My achievements were interesting. Lauren's were important. Lauren was now 32 and ran a successful event planning company. She understood donor lists, media appearances, color palettes, and the art of making wealthy people feel essential. My mother considered those talents proof that Lauren belonged at the center of Whitman Railway Hall. I saw things differently. I did not hate my sister. Lauren could be funny, generous, and thoughtful when our mother was not present, but she had learned early that accepting the spotlight was easier than questioning who had been pushed outside it. For 18 months, I had been creating an immersive historical sound exhibition for the hall. I traveled through 3 states, interviewing retired engineers, porters, ticket clerks, cooks, cleaners, and maintenance workers. I restored more than 400 hours of damaged recordings and paid freelance technicians from my savings whenever my mother claimed the trust's budget was too limited. The exhibition was supposed to open that evening. At least, that was what Grandpa and I had agreed. 2 weeks before the event, my mother changed the invitations. The historical sound archive opening became Lauren and Chase's engagement celebration and leadership announcement. My name vanished from the program. When I confronted her, she said the archive would still be part of the atmosphere. "You should be pleased," she told me. "More people will hear it." I asked whether they would know who created it. She sighed and accused me of turning everything into a competition with Lauren. She had spent my entire life creating that competition, then blamed me whenever I noticed it. I nearly withdrew the recordings that day. The files, interviews, sound design, equipment, and licensing permissions belonged to my studio. Legally, my mother could not use them without authorization, but Grandpa asked me to wait. "There are things about the trust you don't know," he said during a private call. "Come to the event. Bring the red archive case. Do not give it to Diane." When I asked what it contained, he answered, "The difference between what she believes she controls and what she actually controls." At the event, my mother stood beside Lauren and her fiancé, Chase Holloway, a public relations consultant. Lauren wore an ivory dress that made the engagement party resemble a wedding reception. My mother spotted me immediately. "You're late." I reminded her I was 20 minutes early. She said the caterer was short-staffed and ordered me into the kitchen. When I showed her the red case and explained that Grandpa had told me to keep it, she reached for the handle. I stepped back. For 1 second, her polished expression cracked. Then Lauren called her name, and the perfect smile returned. "Do not create a problem tonight," she warned. I should have realized then that she was already afraid. The first public humiliation came before all the guests had arrived. A reporter from a Kansas City arts publication approached me near the central exhibit. She had interviewed me months earlier about the restoration process and seemed confused by the engagement banners. "Samantha, congratulations. I didn't realize the archive opening had become part of another celebration. Are you still speaking tonight?" Before I could answer, my mother appeared beside me. "Samantha prefers working behind the scenes," she said smoothly. "Lauren is much better at communicating the vision." The reporter looked at me. "But Samantha created the sound archive, correct?" My mother laughed lightly. "She handled the technical cleanup. The broader creative direction was a family project." That was not an exaggeration or clever public relations. It was a lie. No one else conducted the interviews, restored the recordings, designed the sound map, or secured the permissions, I said. My mother's smile tightened. "This is not the time to discuss production details." The reporter thanked us and stepped away, but not before checking that her recorder was still running. Once she was out of earshot, my mother accused me of embarrassing her. I told her I had corrected her. She ordered me into the kitchen. That sentence, "Family helps wherever needed," might have sounded reasonable to anyone who had not lived inside it. Helping meant missing my high school awards dinner because Lauren needed recital decorations. It meant editing Lauren's college application while my mother told relatives Lauren had always been the stronger writer. It meant lending the venue expensive equipment for free, then receiving invoices for the food I ate during long work days. I was always useful enough to summon, but never important enough to acknowledge. I walked away before my anger became entertainment and found Grandpa sitting near the old ticket counters. His hands looked thinner than they had a month earlier, but his eyes remained clear. "You brought the case?" he asked. I touched the handle and said Mom had tried to take it. I expected she would. I demanded to know what was happening. Grandpa glanced toward my mother. "Diane scheduled a vote tonight." The vote was supposedly meant to amend the trust's operating agreement and install Lauren as executive director. "Can she do that?" I asked. "She believes she can," he replied. Inside the case were original trust documents, property schedules, financial statements, and a letter from his attorney. Before I could ask why my mother feared them, Lauren approached and requested a private conversation. She said she knew I was upset about the program, but insisted the changes had not been her decision. "You accepted them," I replied. She said the night mattered to her too and accused me of acting cold since I arrived. I reminded her that my work had been relabeled as a family project. Lauren lowered her voice. "Please don't turn everything into proof that Mom loves me more." In one careless sentence, she admitted she had always seen the favoritism clearly enough to name it. "You know she does," I said. Her expression changed, but Chase called her toward the stage before she responded. My mother appeared minutes later carrying a silver tray filled with empty champagne glasses. She ordered me to wash them. I refused. I wasn't invited as catering staff. She said I had been invited as family, which meant helping wherever I was needed. "I contributed the entire exhibition," I answered. She told me to lower my voice. "No." That single word surprised both of us. She grabbed my arm and tried to steer me toward the service corridor. Several glasses rattled. "Let go of me." She released me only because nearby guests had turned to watch. Then she pinned a spare staff support badge to my dress. A few people laughed uncertainly. Leaning close enough for only the nearest guests to hear, she hissed, "You're here to wash dishes," then shoved me toward the kitchen. Not hard enough to knock me down, but hard enough to make her message unmistakable. That was the trigger she had spent the entire evening trying to avoid. I did not scream. I did not cry. I removed the badge, placed it on the tray, picked up the red case, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, Grandpa Elliot stood up. "Diane." Grandpa did not raise his voice. He did not need to. The hall had already gone silent. My mother turned slowly, still holding the tray. A glass tipped against another with a sharp chime. Grandpa steadied himself with his cane. "Take your hands off my granddaughter." My mother replied that she had already released me and that Samantha was being dramatic. Grandpa looked toward the badge. "Did you invite her here to open the archive she created?" My mother said the evening had several purposes. That was not my question. Guests near the stage shifted uneasily, and several phones appeared at waist level. Lauren stepped forward and suggested discussing everything privately. Grandpa asked whether she had known the event's original purpose was Samantha's exhibition opening. Lauren looked at our mother. Her hesitation answered for her. My mother accused Grandpa of destroying Lauren's engagement. "No," he replied. "I am correcting a theft." The word moved through the room like electricity. Chase approached the microphone and tried to dismiss the confrontation as a family misunderstanding. "Ladies and gentlemen, please enjoy the refreshments while we resolve." I opened the control application connected to the sound system and muted his microphone. Chase tapped it twice. Nothing happened. My mother looked at me. "Turn it back on." "No." For the first time that evening, she seemed to understand that the building's most impressive feature did not belong to her. Grandpa asked me to bring the red case. I returned to the head table and placed it in front of him. He removed a brass key from his jacket. His hands shook as he opened the locks, but his movements remained deliberate. Inside were folders, property maps, sealed envelopes, and a black ledger. My mother's face went pale. "You entered my office," Grandpa corrected her. "My office, my files, my trust." He explained that the Elliott Whitman Heritage Trust retained ownership of the hall, all fixed historical assets, and the railway archive. Under Article 9, the founder could remove an operating trustee for misrepresentation, self-dealing, misuse of protected assets, or conduct damaging to the trust's purpose. My mother insisted that the trust had authorized her to manage the property. "Under supervision," Grandpa said. She reminded him that she had run the venue for 12 years. "During those years, you began speaking as though you owned it." My mother called the dispute personal and unrelated to trust operations. Grandpa opened the black ledger. On March 14th, the trust paid $28,000 to Holloway Public Relations. Chase's expression changed. The invoice described historical outreach, but the attached proposal described media preparation for Lauren's leadership campaign. Grandpa continued. $7,800 for engagement photography had been listed as architectural documentation. $12,000 in catering had been categorized as donor preservation outreach. More than $6,000 in custom stage decorations had become educational signage. Whispers spread through the hall. Lauren turned toward Chase. "Did the trust pay your firm?" He admitted my mother had hired them. She insisted the announcement benefited the venue. Grandpa looked toward the trust's attorney, a gray-haired woman seated near the front. She stood and opened her briefcase. My mother finally lost control. "You planned this." Grandpa said he had planned to give her one final opportunity to tell the truth. That Samantha created the exhibition, trust funds had promoted Lauren, and the leadership announcement had never been approved. Lauren looked at the trustees. "You didn't vote?" None of them answered. My mother's desperation became anger. "The board is afraid of change. Lauren could transform this place. Samantha cannot even speak to a room without making everyone uncomfortable." Nearly 100 people heard her. The reporter lifted her recorder. Grandpa's shoulders sank with disappointment. "Diane, you still believe Samantha's silence proves she has nothing to say?" He turned toward me. "Show them." I opened my laptop and replaced the background music with a restored interview. An elderly woman's voice filled the hall. "My name is Dorothy Bell. I sold tickets here from 1959 to 1974. People remember the trains, but I remember the workers no one photographed. The cleaners came after midnight. The kitchen women arrived before dawn. The porters knew every child traveling alone. History forgets quiet people because loud people take the credit." The recording paused, then continued. "But quiet people hold the whole place together." When it ended, the silence felt completely different. It no longer belonged to my mother. It belonged to me. Grandpa asked me to open the second folder. Inside were copies of emails from my mother to Chase's public relations firm. The first said, "We need to minimize Samantha's role in public-facing materials. Her technical contribution is useful, but Lauren represents the future of the venue." Another read, "List the archive as produced by the Whitman family. Samantha can be thanked verbally if necessary." Lauren covered her mouth. I felt no satisfaction yet, only confirmation. Some betrayals hurt because they reveal something unexpected. Others hurt because they prove every suspicion you tried to dismiss was correct. My mother had not forgotten to credit me. She had planned my erasure. Grandpa removed the licensing agreement. The trust had permission to present the recordings only if my studio received full creative attribution. The attorney confirmed that removing my name placed the venue outside the agreement. My mother looked at me. "You would sue your own family?" "I never said anything about suing." "Then stop this." "I'm stopping the exhibition." I closed the project on my laptop. The sounds of trains, machinery, interviews, laughter, and platform announcements disappeared from every speaker. Whitman Railway Hall suddenly sounded like what it was without my work. A large room full of uncomfortable people. My mother demanded that I restart the system. When I refused, she accused me of destroying something beautiful because I had not received enough praise. "I'm taking back what you used without permission," I answered. She ordered the technician to restore the files from a backup. He explained that the venue had no local copies because my company hosted the encrypted masters. My mother had mocked the security expense 6 months earlier. Now it was the only reason she could not take the archive again. Lauren picked up one of the emails. "You told me Samantha wanted to stay anonymous." My mother claimed I hated public attention. For years, she had described me as shy whenever she wanted to exclude me. The truth was that I had learned not to speak in rooms where every sentence would be corrected, minimized, or redirected toward my sister. Lauren looked at me. Did you ask for your name to be removed? No. Did you approve my leadership announcement? No. Did you know the trust paid Chase's company? No. Chase loosened his tie and admitted he had relied on Diane's claim that she possessed the necessary authority. Grandpa then revealed that this pattern had not begun with the exhibition. When I was 12, he gave Lauren and me antique railway lanterns. Lauren's was polished and placed on a shelf. I dismantled mine because I wanted to understand why it no longer worked. Grandpa helped me rebuild it, and I prepared a demonstration for a local youth history exhibition. My mother canceled my registration so Lauren could use the family display table for dance trophies. At 16, I earned a place in a summer engineering workshop. Mom spent the deposit on Lauren's scholarship competition and told me the workshop had been canceled. At 22, my university offered to exhibit my first audio project. Mom scheduled a fundraising dinner at the hall on the same evening, then told relatives I had chosen not to attend. Each memory came with dates, records, and decisions. There was no vague emotion she could dismiss as jealousy. My mother rolled her eyes. What was I supposed to do? Lauren had talent people could see. Samantha locked herself in rooms with broken tapes and dead voices. The retired railway workers seated near the back heard every word. One man lowered his head. My mother realized too late what she had said. Grandpa's voice became quiet. Those voices built the reputation you sell. The attorney opened the last sealed envelope. Effective immediately, Diane Whitman is suspended as operating manager of Whitman Railway Hall, pending a complete independent audit. Her authority to approve expenditures, represent the trust, access financial accounts, or enter restricted archive areas is revoked. A strange sound escaped my mother. You cannot do this to me. Grandpa looked at the trustees, donors, workers, and reporters she had spent years trying to impress. I just did. My mother's first reaction was not remorse, it was calculation. She looked at the donors, then the reporter, and finally, Lauren. Her expression changed into something wounded and maternal. This is what Samantha wanted. She has resented you since childhood, and now she has manipulated an elderly man into destroying your future. Lauren recoiled. Don't put this on her. It may have been the first time she had openly refused to support our mother. She demanded an explanation for the non-existent board vote, the trust payments, and my erased credit. Mom justified each decision as being for Lauren's future. Lauren held up the email. You didn't protect me, you used me. Chase suggested they leave, but Lauren asked how much he knew. He admitted he had known my credit was being reduced and had prepared a response in case I objected. He called it crisis management. Lauren gave a short, humorless laugh. There was no crisis until all of you created one. She removed her engagement ring and placed it beside the fraudulent invoices. Chase whispered her name, but she stepped away. I'm not ending everything tonight. I'm refusing to make another decision while surrounded by lies. For the first time, my mother's carefully designed celebration truly collapsed. The engagement announcement was suspended. The leadership appointment had been exposed as fictional. The exhibition was offline, and her authority had been revoked. Yet she still looked at me as though I had committed the greatest betrayal. You could have spoken to me privately. I reminded her that I had confronted her 2 weeks earlier when she removed my name. She accused me of being hostile and hiding behind technicalities. Ownership is not a technicality, I said. Consent is not a technicality. Credit is not a technicality. Several guests nodded. My mother noticed and accused me of enjoying her humiliation. I considered giving the graceful answer everyone expected, then chose honesty. Part of me does. I'm not proud of that. But after years of being told every humiliation was for the family, I won't pretend I feel sorry that the truth reached the same audience you lied to. Her face hardened. There you are. That is who you really are. No. This is who I became, after realizing kindness without boundaries becomes permission. She pointed toward the doors and ordered me to leave her building. Grandpa answered before I could. "It is not your building." She demanded to know whether he would choose me over her. "This is not a choice between daughters or granddaughters. It is a choice between protecting the trust and protecting your pride." The attorney explained what would happen next. The board would appoint an interim operations committee. An independent accounting firm would review the previous 5 years of spending, and unauthorized personal or promotional expenses might have to be repaid. The trust would publish a correction regarding the false leadership announcement and the authorship of my exhibition. My mother closed her eyes. Losing her job frightened her. Losing control angered her. But the public correction devastated her because her identity depended on being seen as the visionary behind the venue. Grandpa then asked the attorney to hand me another letter. 6 months earlier, he had amended the trust. Upon his resignation or death, one permanent trustee seat would pass to a descendant with professional qualifications in historical preservation, engineering, archival work, or public education. Lauren's event planning background did not meet the requirement. Mine did. My mother stared at me. "You plan to replace me." I told her I had not known about the amendment. She refused to believe me, but I realized I no longer cared. For years, she had controlled me through my need to be understood. Every argument ended when I exhausted myself trying to prove I was not jealous, selfish, difficult, or ungrateful. Now, I did not need her verdict. Grandpa clarified that I was not receiving her management position. I would receive one trustee seat within a board, preventing any single person from controlling the hall again. I closed the red case and established conditions for restoring the exhibition: full attribution, a corrected agreement, consent before any interview was used for promotion, direct contact with every living participant, and a separate public opening where railway workers and their families received the first invitations. The trustees agreed. Decision by decision, my mother's authority disappeared. Not because I shouted louder, but because I possessed the contracts, the evidence, the work, and finally, the willingness to leave. The event ended without the speech my mother had written. There was no announcement naming Lauren executive director, no glowing story about the family legacy passing gracefully from one daughter to another, and no carefully staged photograph beneath the station clock. Guests left in small groups, speaking quietly. Some avoided us, while others approached Grandpa and shook his hand. Several retired railway workers asked whether their interviews would remain in the exhibition. I promised they would. The reporter waited near the exit and requested a statement. Once, I would have looked toward my mother before answering, searching her face for permission or warning. This time, I looked only at the reporter. "The archive was created to honor people whose work was essential but often uncredited," I said. "Tonight demonstrated why attribution matters. The exhibition will reopen after the trust confirms that every participant's story is presented accurately and respectfully." When she asked about my mother's suspension, I referred her to the attorney. Mom laughed bitterly. "Now you care about privacy." I turned toward her. "No, I care about accuracy." That was the last thing I said to her that evening. Lauren found me outside beside the abandoned tracks. The air smelled faintly of rain and oil from nearby repair shops. She had removed her heels and carried them in one hand. Her engagement ring was gone. "I should have asked more questions," she said. "Yes," I answered. She seemed surprised that I did not rush to comfort her. Lauren claimed she had truly believed I wanted to stay behind the scenes. "You believed what was convenient." Her eyes filled. "I never tried to take anything from you. You didn't have to try. Mom gave you things she took from me." She asked what would happen to us and whether I hated her. "No. But I don't trust you." That answer hurt more. Love can survive inside unhealthy families, but trust requires evidence. I told her she could not repair years of silence with one apology. She would have to tell the truth when it cost her something. Lauren agreed to disclose everything she knew to the board, including the fact that she had known my credit was being reduced. That became the first meaningful sacrifice she made for me, not losing a party or removing a ring, but choosing to damage her own image instead of hiding behind another partial truth. 3 months later, the audit identified more than $60,000 in questionable spending. Some expenses were legitimate venue costs recorded carelessly. Others were unmistakably personal promotion disguised as preservation work. My mother agreed to repay a substantial portion instead of challenging the trust in court. She was permanently removed as operating manager and lost access to accounts, offices, staff decisions, and restricted archives. Chase's firm returned part of its fee and issued a statement claiming it had relied on inaccurate authorization. Lauren postponed the wedding and ended the engagement 6 months later. I did not celebrate their breakup. Chase had participated in the deception, but the relationship belonged to Lauren. Justice did not require me to enjoy every piece of damage surrounding the truth. The archive reopened on a cold February morning. There were no gold banners or leadership announcements. The entrance displayed the names of every worker, historian, technician, and family member who had contributed. Beneath the project title appeared one clear line, created and directed by Samantha Whitman. Grandpa arrived in a wheelchair because winter had been hard on his knees. When the restored platform announcement played through the hall, he reached for my hand. "You brought them back again," he said. This time, no one interrupted him to show Lauren's photographs. My sister stood several feet away, welcoming the families of former railway workers and helping our team verify names and dates. She did not ask to be photographed or place her company logo on the program. She was learning. My mother did not attend. She sent a handwritten letter the previous day. Most of it focused on her intentions. She wrote that she had wanted the venue to succeed, that pressure had caused her to make mistakes, and that she believed Lauren was better prepared for leadership. Near the end, she wrote, "I am sorry you felt unseen. Not sorry I erased you. Sorry you felt erased." I read the sentence 3 times, placed the letter in a drawer, and did not respond. Some relatives said life was short. She was still my mother, and forgiveness would give me peace. Perhaps I would forgive her one day, but forgiveness and access are not the same thing. Peace did not require me to return to the role that harmed me. Healing did not require a family photograph where everyone smiled before anything had truly changed. The lesson I carried from that night was not simply that an elderly man had rescued me. Grandpa's courage mattered, but the documents would have meant nothing if I had handed over the archive, washed the dishes, and waited for another private apology. He broke the silence. I chose not to rebuild it. People who benefit from your silence often call boundaries cruel. They describe accountability as revenge, truth as humiliation, and independence as betrayal. They ask why you could not handle everything privately, even when private conversations have protected them for years. Silence has a price. Every time I accepted a smaller role to preserve family harmony, I paid with my confidence, my work, and my name. The night I walked away, the bill finally returned to the person who had created it. My mother lost her position because she abused it. Lauren lost her announcement because it was built on a lie. Chase lost trust because he treated deception as public relations. I did not destroy them. I stopped protecting them from the consequences of their choices. That is the difference between cruelty and justice. Cruelty seeks suffering for its own sake. Justice returns responsibility to those who avoided it. For most of my life, my mother made me believe I was the extra daughter, the quiet one, the difficult one, the person standing near the kitchen while everyone important gathered beneath the lights. Now, whenever I enter Whitman Railway Hall, I hear the voices of workers' history nearly forgot. Their stories survived because someone decided their contributions deserved names. So did mine. If your family values you only when you are useful, silent, or willing to stand behind someone else, Remember this. Walking away is not always abandonment. Sometimes it is the first honest statement you have ever made. Grandpa broke the silence that night, but the life I built afterward began when I refused to apologize for being heard.
Thank you for listening until the final line. All characters, conflicts, and outcomes in this year are fictional and created only for entertainment and reflection. We hope very much that the person who hurts you may try to make your reaction look like the problem. But a boundary after repeated pain is not drama. It is the moment you finally choose yourself over the cycle.